We finished working on the last record in fall of 2014. And at that time, Chris Walla, who's in the band since the beginning, decided he wanted to move on to do some other things. And it was bittersweet, but I think we all knew it was kind of coming in time. So we added 2 new members. We added a gentleman named Dave Depper and a guy named Zach Ray. And initially, they were going to be members just in the touring band, and we would kind of see how that went. And it went really well. I mean, we had been friends with them before they were in the band, but I think what they brought to the live show and some of the kind of tunes we were working on early on, we saw a lot of potential in their skill sets and what they could bring to the process. So, you know, touring for a year and a half or so, and I was writing songs along the way, and one thing led to another, and we have an album now. I would say I probably started writing, I hit my stride writing this record in, you know, maybe early 2016. So normally when we're making a record, I have a hard time writing songs until the record is out, you know? So the last record was out in mid 2015. And after that record was out and we were playing the songs for a while, I started to kind of work on material. But it usually takes me a while to kind of get the muscles back up to strength. And I would say around mid 2016 is when I started kind of getting the songs written that became the core of the record. Yeah, I suppose the worst part of working in a fashion where I go to an office, literally an office every day, or most days when I'm at home and write are the days when it's just not coming. And so there are days that will involve me getting to my studio at 10 a.m., playing guitar for 10 or 15 minutes, and then just looking at the internet for an hour and a half, and then going home. So those days feel somewhat defeating. But at the same time, there are also days when I get to the studio with an idea for a song, or like, oh, I'm gonna pull a loop off that record and see if I can write to that, or a guitar idea or a lyrical idea. And then the entire day is just surgical focus of just, you know, and those days when I come out when I leave the studio with a complete song, they certainly justify the work week, and sometimes they can even justify the work month. Because, you know, if you figure there's 10 songs on this album, and, you know, it's been 3 years plus since the last record, I mean, that's really writing one song every 2 months that ends up on the album. So my hit rate is not as high as I would like it to be, but at the same time, I think going in and writing every day is important, because you find yourself with more material than you can use, and then that material can be mined later when you're trying to kind of finish other songs. So I think if I did not do it this way, I wouldn't have had the body of work to pull on to finish some of the songs that ended up on this record. Well, I live in Seattle, and Seattle is a city that's been changing really rapidly over the past 10, 15 years with the advent of, you know, these tech companies that have kind of moved in and really changed the culture of the city. And, you know, there are a lot of people who have been displaced as the city has grown and become more expensive, whether it's, you know, minorities, people of color, working class people, artists, a lot of these, you know, populations that have really made the city what it is and given it the flavor and the spirit that has drawn people to the city are now leaving the city. And this is something that we've seen in New York, we've seen this in San Francisco, and now we're seeing it in Seattle. And, you know, while there is certainly a political bend to that, I think what has affected me the most has been very personal, which is that I've noticed how much I have tied my memories to, you know, the geography of the city. And there are places in the city that were very formative in who I've become as a human being and an artist, and those places are disappearing. And that's painful, because you know that, you know, time marches on, cities change. You know, Berlin is a city obviously that's changing very rapidly as well. This is just a part of living in a city. However, it's affected me in a very interesting way, in that I feel as if I'm losing some of these kind of, I'm losing this time in my life all over again because I can't interface with it anymore. You know, where once was the bar we used to go to, and that, you know, I wrote songs on, you know, a napkin, you know, wrote down lyrical ideas. Well, now that's like now that's a Starbucks, you know, and those changes are difficult. So I wanted to kind of, that was a theme that kind of found its way through a lot of the songs. Well, I think we all wanted the record to be a more up-tempo album. You know, this band is 20 years old, and I, as a music fan and a student of, I guess I should say, like, the mistakes bands make as they get older. I mean, some of the mistakes, some of the changes, some of the evolution is just natural, and what happens to bands as they get older, and some of it's outside of one's control to stave off that kind of those things. But I do think that one of the ways that bands get boring is by just starting to write just mid-tempo songs. And you know, you start hearing it when like the acoustic guitars and the tempos start sliding, and it's just like, it's as if, you know, a band cannot keep up with themselves anymore. Like, the old songs are harder, you see them live and they can't keep up with the old songs, and the new songs are slow and boring. And I don't think that, we really wanted to avoid that. You know, the things that we can control in the aging process of the band are just not having the songs get slow and boring. I think maybe second in line behind writing slow songs with acoustic guitars is when bands of our age start trying to remain contemporary. Because it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to hear a band that you love try to use a sonic palette or the studio tricks that, you know, a bunch of 23-year-olds are using. And for me, I think the best thing we can do as we continue to make records is to make records that are true to the catalog of music and the style of music that we are known for. You know, I mean, people don't want to hear Jesus and Mary Chain sound like Animal Collective. They want to hear Jesus and Mary Chain sound like Jesus and Mary Chain, you know? And I think people want to hear Death Cab for Cutie sound like Death Cab for Cutie. So, you know, when I listen to contemporary music, and I'm just blown away by, like, you know, kind of what's, you know, this kind of sonic kind of touches that people are able to add to their music now. But I'm also very aware that I should stay as far away from that as possible and allow that to be, these are the things that young people use in their music. And like, because we are older and we've been doing this style of music for as long as we have, let's just stay true to who we are. Nobody wants to hear the Rolling Stones sound, you know, like Soccer Mommy. They want, like, the Rolling Stones to be the Rolling Stones, you know? And that's, I feel like, as a band that's been around for 20 years, like, the best service we can do ourselves is just to kind of continue to make the kind of music that, you know, that not only we're known for, but I think we're best at making.